everyone, and welcome to the day 7 of Digital Marketing Series. This session is about podcast marketing. A podcast can be understood as a series of episodes, digitally programmed and formatted, focusing on a specific theme or topics like technology, startups, or anything else. In this session, you will learn all about podcast marketing. So, without further ado, let's start the session.
Before we start the session, kindly subscribe and hit the bell icon for more updates.
Hello everyone, welcome to Intellipaat. In today's video, we will be learning about podcast marketing. So let's start with the agenda. We will start with by understanding what exactly a podcast is. Then we'll try to understand what is podcast marketing. Moving on, we'll try to understand why exactly should we care about podcast marketing. After which, we'll be looking into the advantages of podcast marketing, followed by the effect of podcast in the expansion of business, and also strategies for podcast marketing. And then we'll finally conclude it with the conclusion. Let's start with by understanding what exactly a podcast is. A podcast is a form of audio broadcasting on the web which can be listened anywhere. For example, the place where you work, or while jogging in the park, or anywhere. And now let's understand what is podcast marketing. So, podcast marketing is simply the act of marketing yourself, your products or your services through the creation and distribution of audio content. And now let's look into why exactly should we care about podcast marketing. So this was a case study that was done in USA that showed a positive growth in podcast listeners, which showed the number of people who are familiar with podcasting had increased by 5%, going from 70% to 75% in a span of a year is a huge achievement. And next, in the USA, half of the population listens to the podcast. And also, at least once in a month, 104 million individuals listen to a podcast. And to tell you the extent of how many people listen to podcast, around 24% of US population or around 68 million individuals listen to podcast on a weekly basis. And also 45% of households who listen to the podcast on a monthly basis make more than $75,000. The COVID pandemic, which caused a 42% increase in podcast listening, recently contributed to the increase in number. And now let's understand the benefits of podcast marketing. Improved connection. Podcasting is not only a great way, but one of the best ways in which you can grow an audience. Increased brand awareness and reach. Every impression your podcast gets, your reach towards the audience increases. Heightened authority. When people listen to you, learn from, and take advices from you, you are a form of authority over them. This increases the likelihood that you would be able to influence them to take the action needed to realize the value you provide. Revenue from advertising. You will be able to advertise different brands in your podcast that will generate you a decent amount of revenue. And now let's look into how can podcasts grow my business by building a dedicated following. The amount of listeners to your podcast will in turn give you the authority to influence them through building a loyal community. Loyal community will always be a boon to business as they will always be supportive. By increasing revenue, greater the number of following you have will in turn increase your revenue through various means. Now, let's look into the podcast marketing strategies. Re-upload your most popular and interesting episodes. Someone who just discovered your podcast yesterday may have missed that awesome episode that you released last year. So by re-uploading it, it would be beneficial for you as the person who is listening to your podcast. Make sure the audio quality of your podcast is excellent. Try to use a good quality products that could be helpful in achieving the quality of the podcast. Make excellent show notes. Always have a good show notes that would help to be discovered. It improves your SEO which means it will rank highly in search engines. Be consistent always. Always try to have a decent amount of podcasts which are being continuously uploaded. Publish and promote through various platforms. Very low effort but high reward. Always try to promote your podcast through various platforms. Join a podcast network. Publicity is vital for your podcast to grow. One way you can do this is by linking your podcast to different podcast networks. Include emails. Always try to include in email. Include share buttons in your show notes. You want your audience and listeners to give you more publicity, so you have to make it easy for them. Share buttons will do the trick. Use Google Ads to promote your podcast. So, what are the top 3 keywords that your ideal listener will search for before finding your show? Try to bid on them through Google Ads. Tell stories in your podcast episodes. Storytelling is a great way to pass information. If you tell a story through number of episodes, people are more likely to listen to them all. Partner up. There are probably 75 more people out there with the audience of your ideal listeners. Find them, make friends with them, and then promote each other. Participate in every podcast. It would definitely impact your connection with the audience and also provide a positive feedback from the audience. And now let's conclude it. The first thing to do is to make sure that your product or service is incredibly good before marketing it, which means before marketing anything, make sure that the products or services that you are providing is of some use to the listeners.
Just a quick info, guys. If you want to make a career in digital marketing, then Intellipaat provides a advanced certification in digital marketing and analytics. It is taught by IIT professors and industry experts with more than 10 years of experience. This course is designed to upskill and land your dream job.
We have come at the end of the session. Kindly subscribe and hit the bell icon for more updates.